Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to unpack something truly fascinating, Pakistani English. And I don't just mean an accent. We're talking about a complete, rule-governed variety of the English language, one with its own unique history, rhythm, and sense of identity.
So, let me ask you something right off the bat. Have you ever been listening to someone speak English, and because their accent was different, a little voice in your head whispered, that's not right, that's broken English? It's a really common reaction. But today, we're going to tear that idea apart.
Because here's the thing, and this is absolutely crucial. Linguists have known for decades that varieties like Pakistani English aren't just a bunch of random mistakes. Not at all. They are incredibly systematic, with their own consistent rules and patterns, all shaped by the local languages spoken all around them. This isn't bad English, it's just a different English.
Now, to really get a handle on this, we've got to zoom out first. You can't really understand one specific type of English without looking at a map of all the Englishes spoken across the entire globe. And that brings us to this big idea of world Englishes. Think of it like this. When a language travels, it doesn't just stay the same. It can't. It has to adapt and evolve to fit the needs of the people using it, creating this incredible tapestry of different but totally valid versions of English.
And this way of thinking didn't just appear out of thin air. It was built up piece by piece over decades. It really kicked off back in '65, when a linguist named Braj Khatru started analyzing how English was becoming nativized in India. By the mid-'80s, he'd introduced this revolutionary new model, and by the '90s, other scholars were arguing that the real test of a language isn't if a native speaker understands it, but if it works for its own community.
Which brings us to Khatru's brilliant three circles model. So you've got the inner circle, think UK, USA, where English is the primary language. Then there's the expanding circle, where it's learned as a foreign language. But Pakistan, it sits right in the middle, in what's called the outer circle. These are places with a colonial history, where English became an official language, growing and changing right alongside the local ones.
Okay, so now that we know where Pakistani English fits on the world map, let's zoom all the way in and really listen to how it sounds. We're going to start with its music, its rhythm, because honestly, that's often the very first thing our ears pick up on.
And right away, there's a huge difference. British and American English are what we call stress-timed. This means the beat of the sentence lands on the important stressed words, and everything else in between just gets kind of crushed, creating this rolling da-da-da-dum sound. But Pakistani English is syllable-timed, thanks to the influence of languages like Urdu. Here, every single syllable gets roughly the same amount of time, giving it this very distinct, almost staccato, machine gun-like rhythm.
Just listen to this. In that stress-timed rhythm, I'd say, I want to go to the market. Did you hear how to and the almost vanish? They just get squeezed in there.
Okay, now here's that exact same sentence in a syllable-timed rhythm. I want to go to the market. See? It's totally different. Every word, every syllable gets its moment in the spotlight. It's clear, it's even, and it's a massive part of what gives Pakistani English its unique cadence.
All right, we've felt the beat, the overall music. Now let's break it down and look at the individual notes. Those specific consonant and vowel sounds that make Pakistani English so distinct.
Let's kick things off with two of the most common letters out there, T and D. The difference here is really subtle, and it's all about where your tongue goes inside your mouth, a habit that comes straight from languages like Urdu and Punjabi.
So in standard English, when you say words like time or day, the very tip of your tongue taps that bumpy ridge right behind your top teeth. That's called an alveolar sound. But in Pakistani English, the tongue curls back just a little bit, and it touches the hard roof of your mouth. This is a retroflex consonant. It changes time to dime and day to day. It's a small change, but it's consistent, and it's there.
All right, next up is a real classic, the th sound. In words like think or this. What's so interesting here is that linguists actually consider this sound a non-core feature, meaning whether you say it one way or another almost never affects if someone can understand what you're saying. Okay, so in British or American English, th is what we call a fricative. Air kind of hisses between your tongue and teeth. Think. This. In Pakistani English, this sound is consistently replaced by a dental stop. Your tongue presses right up against your teeth, stopping the air completely, almost like a T or a D. So think becomes more like tink, and this becomes dis. And let me say it again, this isn't a mistake, it's just a different linguistic rule.
Now let's talk vowels. One of the biggest things you'll notice in Pakistani English is how it handles vowels that are actually two sounds gliding together. We call those diphthongs.
So in a word like gate, a standard English speaker's vowel sound actually glides from an e to an e sound. Gate. Same for the word road, which glides from to u, road. Well, Pakistani English often simplifies these into one single pure sustained vowel, a monophthong. So gate becomes gate, and road becomes road. This simplification process really gives the pronunciation a unique flavor.
So, we've looked at the rhythm, the consonants, the vowels, but where does all this stuff come from? It's not happening by accident. These are the fingerprints of local languages working together to create a brand new, unique voice for English in Pakistan. And you can see that whole process right here. The sound system, the phonology, borrows those retroflex sounds from Urdu. The vocabulary borrows words. Even the sentence structure and social rules are influenced. This isn't language interference, it's a totally natural process that linguists call nativization. It's about making a language feel right at home in a new environment.
And this right here is the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. This is all about identity. As linguist Andy Kirkpatrick points out, speakers are making choices. Someone might use a more internationally understood accent when they're talking to foreigners, but they'll use these unique features of Pakistani English to signal exactly who they are and where they belong when they're talking with other Pakistanis. It's a tool for communication, sure, but it's also a badge of identity.
So, after all that, what's the big picture? Well, we've seen that Pakistani English is a totally legitimate rule-based system, not just a collection of errors. We know its unique features, from its syllable-timed rhythm to its retroflex consonants, come directly from its contact with local languages. And most importantly, these aren't just sounds, they are powerful symbols of both cultural and national identity.
Which really leaves us with one final big question to think about. If a way of speaking a language works perfectly for its community, if it lets them express every thought, conduct business, create art, and connect with each other, then who on earth gets to decide if it's correct?